Welcome to the first of our two discussions on the Nativity stories. And this week we're going to be looking at Matthew's account. Matthew begins in the strangest way, really. Or, on the other hand, maybe it's the obvious way. He begins the story of Jesus with a genealogy. Now, there are plenty of genealogies in the Old Testament, but no book starts with anybody's family tree. Matthew, however, decides to. And it's not there as a cold piece of Ancestry.com fact. It is there to say things about who Jesus is. And he is the son of Abraham, the son of David. If David was the flawed but heroic model of kingship, of God-given leadership, then Jesus is his son. But we don't quite start there. The genealogy begins the book of the Genesis of Jesus Christ, son of David, son of Abraham. So Matthew begins with Abraham, the father of all nations. Jesus is to be for all people. And the very end of the book will have Jesus standing in glory on the holy mountain, sending out the disciples to all nations, not just to the Jews. Because Abraham is the father of all nations, the father of Jesus. Now, in the Hebrew tradition, genealogies don't usually have women. So by mentioning the women, Matthew is preparing us for something rather shocking. It is partly that Jesus' birth is in itself questionable. So the gospel begins with Jesus' family earthly tree, pointing in particular to David, and David is the king. Jesus is going to be the king, but there's also Joseph, who is called son of David. David, of course, the sort of rather like King Arthur, he is this heroic legendary figure. Matthew, the family tree, David. It's rather like a soap opera. Please, when you've stopped watching me, have a read of the opening bit of Matthew. This genealogy is filled with sex and violence. David, who commits adultery with the wife of Uriah and then gets Uriah killed, has sex on the rooftop maybe. Well, this is Jesus' ancestors. David's grandfather finds Ruth in his bed one day at his feet. Well, at his feet is a euphemism. So Ruth is there, not married. And then the history goes through this genealogy with one rather dubious person after another. Jesus' family were murderers, cheats, idolaters, and the great hero David with a very dark side. And then along come Mary and Joseph, and they're not married. In one sense, this is saying that it doesn't matter who you are, who your ancestors are, God can do something. God can work with it. Another important theme in the opening and throughout the whole of the Gospel of Matthew is this idea of the fulfillment of the scriptures. The virgin birth has become quite an important thing and an area of discussion and argument and disagreement between maybe conservatives and liberals. Matthew, in one sense, isn't particularly interested in the virgin birth as such. What he's interested in is the fulfillment of the scriptures. There is a scripture, possibly, because the original Hebrew doesn't say a virgin will conceive, it says a young woman will conceive. But there's a Greek version that says, behold, the virgin will conceive and bear a son. And so Matthew says, this is in fulfillment of the scriptures. Everything that's going to happen to Jesus is in fulfillment of the scriptures. This is what the scriptures are all about. Everything is pointing to him. And the third thing is the whole theme of kingship. It is ironic that the Magi, the story of the Magi are turned into three kings. The Magi are not kings, they are priests. And the story is, though, about kingship. We've got these Persian princes of priests of we don't know how many they were. And as far as Matthew is concerned, they're there pointing to who Jesus is. He is the one to whom the nations will come to worship. This is an important theme to Matthew, the nations coming. But they are not kings, and yet they come to seek the king. They go to the wrong place because they go to Herod. Now, Herod was seen by many as the illegitimate king. He was in the wrong place, that is in Jerusalem. Jerusalem, the city where the prophets are killed, where Jesus is going to be killed. Herod is an Idumean. He's not Jewish. And although his family practiced Judaism, his race, his family, was not from David, unlike Jesus. Herod was, we know, an appalling murderer of his own children, not from David's line and not from David's town. And in the end, the Magi, whatever the number is, they end up at David's town. They come to find the true God's Son. And God's Son is a title in the Old Testament, sometimes, of the kings. Now, throughout Mark and Matthew, Jesus is shown as the ideal king, the true king, what all kings should be like. Herod was, as I said, the king in the wrong place and of the wrong family. Jesus is the right one. Interestingly, there's no hint in Matthew that Jesus' family was from Galilee. Galilee was, traditionally was Gentile and had been recently converted. Jesus is from the stump of Jesse, that is from David's family, and he's the true king and will show how a true ruler should rule. I'll see you live, hopefully. Bye-bye.